Welcome to the continuation of Global Sourcing Essentials. In this section, we will cover the import process. Now at this point, we've invested some upfront time in one of the most critical aspects of importing, the supplier and supplier management. Now we'll bring it together and take an in-depth look at the process from contact with potential suppliers to product arrival. Step 1 is to request a quote from potential suppliers. This request can be in the form of a phone call notice, followed by an email describing quote details. Note, in this example, we're using an existing product import scenario. In step 2, the importer should receive a response in the form of a pro forma. In trade transactions, a pro forma invoice is a document that states a commitment from the seller to sell goods to the buyer at specified prices and terms. It is used to declare the value of the trade and provides essential information. However, it is not a true invoice. Here is an example of an email reflecting a request for quote, otherwise known as an RFQ. This request for quote is for 300 automatic remote thermostats. The email outlines product, quantity, and reflects shipping dates and payment terms. Here is a sample pro forma invoice. The invoice includes information about the importer and supplier, as well as terms of payment, in this case a letter of credit. It also includes country of origin, which in our example is Singapore. Then it begins outlining details. Notice contract terms list CIF Houston, Texas. CIF is an Incoterm. For payment, a letter of credit is detailed as against confirmed irrevocable letter of credit at site. This instructs the importer to open a letter of credit in favor of the seller. The invoice also notes that all charges beyond U.S. port of entry are on the buyer's account, so that means the importer will have to coordinate rail or freight to San Antonio from Houston. The invoice notes item numbers, item description, quantity, unit price, amounts, and an HS number, which we'll explain shortly. You'll notice it even goes as far as detailing the export packaging. Pro formas are key to clear communication, so make sure it details the proposed transaction. We pointed out that contract terms are CIF. CIF, an acronym for cost, insurance, freight, means the seller delivers when the goods pass the ship's rail in the port of shipment. In our example, the seller pays for shipment and insurance, which is usually the bare minimum, from Houston to Singapore. After delivery, the loss or damage to goods and freight to San Antonio transfer from the seller to the importer. CIF is one of 13 Incoterms used globally to define the respective obligations and the sharing of responsibilities between a seller and a buyer in the context of international trade. The beauty of Incoterms is that they either reduce or remove altogether uncertainties arising from differing interpretations that can occur, like for example language, of such terms in different countries. Incoterms are an integral part of the sales process to avoid miscommunication, errors, and related cost. It's truly at the heart of every transaction in international trade. Incoterms are derived and published by the International Chamber of Commerce. Their website will be an invaluable resource and reference for your import projects. Incoterms will come after you agree on price and determine who is responsible for transportation, insurance, logistics, and documents, among other things. Most importantly, it identifies responsibility and risk during each leg of the project. For all their benefits, we do stress that Incoterms cannot transfer titles of property or address consequences that result from a breach of contract. Here is a list of the 13 Incoterms. Under Group E, the seller minimizes his risk by only making the goods available at his own premises. Group F, the seller arranges and pays for the pre-carriage, otherwise known as transportation, in the country of export only. In Group C, the seller arranges and pays for the main carriage but without assuming the risk of the main carriage. And finally, Group D, the seller's cost and risk is maximized because they must make the goods available at the agreed destination. So let's take a short break. Make sure to click on the next video to continue learning about the import process. Thanks for joining us.